Hello, and welcome to Football Country, a podcast about all things Brazilian football. In this podcast, I cover news and match results, as well as take a deep dive into the history of clubs and of the Brazilian game in general. My name is Isaac, and thank you for joining me. Clubs, mainstays, staples of the Brazilian game, clubs like Palmeiras, Vasco, Botafogo, Fluminense, even Corinthians, while they have seen themselves relegated in the past, they've always been able to make their way back into the first division or the Serie A. They've been able to make their way back into the first division and now see success again, despite having those terrible seasons. However, one club that comes to mind that has been unable to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get themselves back to where they once were is Santa Cruz from Recife, Pernambuco. And while in the 60s and 70s, Santa Cruz saw relative success and competed at the highest level of the Brazilian game, in the 1980s, Santa Cruz was relegated to Serie B, which is the second division. And from there, it would yo-yo back and forth to the Serie A, back and forth. It would get relegated one season. It would get promoted the next. However, that went on for about 2 decades until about 2006. And in 2006 to 2009, the club would become the first ever in Brazilian football history to fall from the first division to the fourth in 3 consecutive years. Santa Cruz currently finds itself in the fourth division and will play the 2025 season in Serie D. And that's even better than it was last season because it got promoted last season to Serie D. It was playing non-league ball. It didn't do well. They didn't do well in the Pernambuco State Championship. They didn't go very far in the Copa do Nordeste, which is the Northeastern Cup. Because Brazil's a very large country, so they split the cups. There's a major cup competition called the Copa do Brasil. That's all of Brazil teams, and then there's the Northeastern Cup. There's like a Southeastern Cup. There's a Southern Cup. They split it up between that. There's a Northern Cup. But Santa Cruz did not do well in the Northeastern Cup last year. They were playing on league ball, and they're in a terrible situation. And this is a club that is the one that they revealed to the world, the 1999 Ballon d'Or winner in Rivaldo. You're talking about 2002 World Cup winner striker Rivaldo. Barcelona legend. He played as a striker at Barcelona. A lot of times he played on the wing during the Van Gaal days, something that he didn't like, and him and Van Gaal would fight, even going so far as to where Rivaldo would leave games because of, having to play on the wing and not liking it. But another fact about Santa Cruz is that Pelé played his 1,000th career game against Santa Cruz in 1972. And this was back when Santa Cruz was at, the height of its power. It was always in this first division. It was always, not winning, but it was doing well in the top flight. But however, they're just not in the greatest position right now. They're in a terrible state. And that's sad to see a club as big as they are, because their fan base is huge. They've got a 60,000 seater stadium, and that's down from 100,000 where it used to be. It used to be a massive, massive stadium, and now it's only 60,000, which is still one of the biggest in all of Brazil, because most of the biggest teams have, like Botafogo, Palmeiras, Corinthians, Santos. They all have stadiums that fit about 40 to 50,000. So you're talking about a massive team that is playing non-league ball. Now they're in the fourth division, and they're looking to do something about what's going on with the team. Is just they're looking for new opportunities to get the team out of the hole that it's in. And one of those things that they've done is, as of this week, January 14th, 2025, they've become an SAF. So an SAF is an acronym translated to Anonymous Football Society. And that's essentially like a big football corporation. Santa Cruz, their SAF, the corporation that's come out of them selling the shares to a private corporation, that private corporation called Cobra Coral or Coral Snake Enterprises, they've promised to invest 1 billion reais, that's Brazil's currency, in the club over the next 15 years and bring the club back to its glory days. And that is going to be a very difficult mission to undergo, because to get it back to its glory days, you're talking about 3 promotions. They have to get promoted 3 different times in order to get back to the glory days. And so what's the difference between an SAF and like an association football club, which is what most Brazilian clubs are? So many Brazilian clubs today, they remain as civil entities and as association football clubs. These clubs often rely on income from sponsors, player sales, donations, etc. to keep the lights on and the ball rolling. However, clubs like Ronaldo Nazario's, that's R9, Cruzeiro, and city football groups Bahia, French football club Lille owner John Texer's Botafogo and Rio, they've all become SAFs. And they've seen such exponential investment put into their clubs in comparison to clubs that remain civil entities. So you're having clubs like Corinthians and Palmeiras that are these civil entities. They're tax exempt. They have to rely on their fans for voting, for presidency, for actions done in the club. But these SAFs, they don't have to do any of that. They just make the decision. The board makes the decision, and fire the coach. A new coach comes in. They don't have to rely on that. And also, money and investment is just because it's a corporation. It's run like a business, and so they pay their debts. They pay off. They actually pay their players a lot of the times. Some Brazilian clubs have a problem with paying players. And they also offer their fans and local governments transparency in regards to club finances and decisions. And so companies in Brazil, they're under a lot of bureaucracy, and they're under a lot of strict supervision from the government. And so they have to offer the government very transparent financial documents. And that's really good when you have other clubs that have like 2 billion reais in debt. By the way, a real, $1 is about 6 reais. So if you want to know the currency, just divide it by 6, and that's the U.S. dollar. Euro is about 6.30, 6.40, and then pound sterling is crazy. And so these teams that have become SAFs, they've got massive investment coming in. John Texter, who owns Lille over in France, and owns part of Crystal Palace in the Premier League in England, he has invested a ton of money. He's brought players from the MLS. He's brought players from Europe, like Alex Telles that was playing for Manchester United. He's now at Botafogo, and Botafogo has seen themselves win both the domestic Brazilian League and Copa Libertadores, which is the essentially South America's Champions League. And so you've seen teams just make these massive investments, like Bahia, before City Group bought them, they were a team that was struggling in the relegation zone, and now they're going to Copa Libertadores this season, and they've got a star coach in Rogério Ceni, who is São Paulo FC's one of their highest scorers of all time, and he was a goalkeeper. He would do all the free kicks and penalties, so that's pretty much where he got all his goals from. But now he's coaching, and he's at Bahia, and there's stability at Bahia because they used to have to fire a coach like every season, and now they've got stability in Rogério Ceni. And while I wouldn't say that they're doing fantastically, they are going to Copa Libertadores, and because they finished in 8th place in the table last season. So Santa Cruz is really looking to find themselves in a new position, in a new era of their club, in becoming an SAF. And hopefully it works out for them because, like I said, they're a massive, massive club. And as a fan of Brazilian football, but also Northeastern Brazilian football, I would really love to see them back in their glory days. Not that I ever saw them because I was a kid until 2006. I was 8. But I'm a fan of Northeastern football, and Northeastern football really needs its big clubs back into their glory days. And it needs other teams to get into new glory days so that the Northeast can be stronger than ever. But actually the Northeast used to only have like 1 or 2 teams in the top flight in Serie A. But this season, going into 2025, there's going to be 5 Brazilian teams from the Northeast in the top flight, which is amazing. That's going to be Bahia, Vitória, Ceará, Fortaleza, and Sport from Recife. And who knows in the future, now that Santa Cruz has become an SAF, who knows if they can get to that point of becoming a one of those big teams in the top flight again. As far as game updates, for the first time ever, each of the big 4 of Rio de Janeiro's biggest clubs failed to win on the first match day of the Rio State Championship. This is the worst ever start in Rio's Big Four for Rio's Big Four in their respective state competition. So in Brazil, they do state competitions at the beginning of the season before the actual like major tournament start, just to kind of get the big clubs, to get them warmed up for the season, and then also to give the smaller clubs an opportunity to win a championship. Because usually smaller clubs, smaller clubs in Sao Paulo and Rio here in the Northeast, their only opportunity to win anything is to win like the 3rd division, the 4th division, or their state championship. And so the big 4 of Rio are Botafogo, Vasco da Gama, Flamengo, and Fluminense. And so American owner John Textor's Botafogo, current champions of Brazil and South America's Libertadores, they lost to Maricá 2-1. And their rivals Flamengo, one of the country's most decorated and successful clubs and the largest in Brazil in terms of fan base. That's crazy. They are like 20% of Brazil's population is a Flamengo fan, which is like 40 million people. That's crazy. They lost to 4th division club Boa Vista. And Vasco da Gama, they took on a 4th division side as well, Nova Iguaçu, and they drew 1-1. And Fluminense, Rio's tricolor, they walked away with a draw against non-league side Sampaio Corrêa. That's the Rio de Janeiro Sampaio Corrêa. This is the worst ever start for the Rio Big Four in their state competition ever. So 1974, there was 3 draws and 1 loss. And then this year there was 2 losses and 2 draws. And so they failed to win. And I don't think, in my opinion, they didn't do that well in the second match day either. They didn't do that well in the second match day as well. Because you saw... I'm trying to pull it up here. Let me Campeonato Carioca. So they didn't do that well either. Flamengo drew against Madureira. Vasco da Gama drew against Bangu. Fluminense lost to Volta Redonda. And I think only, let me make sure, right, and Botafogo won against Portuguesa RJ. So that's Rio de Janeiro. And so, again, second match day, 3 of the top 4 failed to win. And that doesn't look good for the big Rio the big major Rio clubs. And so in Sao Paulo, the state next to it, a lot of people don't realize that Rio and Sao Paulo are only like a 4-hour drive apart. Sao Paulo state is right next to Rio. And so in Sao Paulo, the big clubs in Sao Paulo, the big four, they actually did pretty well. Three of the big four, one of them Sao Paulo hasn't played quite yet. So Palmeiras won 2-0 against Portuguesa São Paulo. Corinthians took out Red Bull Bragantino 2-1. Santos won against Mirassol last night 2-1. And that is looking better for São Paulo teams in regards to wins, because the Rio teams are looking terrible. My prediction for this season is I think a team out of São Paulo is going to win the national tournament this year, Serie A. And that is because the São Paulo teams, Botafogo specifically is going to be defending their title, and that's always really hard. If you look at other leagues, defending champions struggle. I think Flamengo's playing with their base. They're playing with their reserves in the Rio competition, so that's probably why they're not doing very well. But teams like Fluminense that almost got relegated last season, Vasco that finished like 12th last season, they're not doing very good. So I think this season it's going to be probably Palmeiras. I think it'll probably be Palmeiras that'll take the championship this year. Palmeiras or Corinthians. I think Corinthians has strengthened themselves a lot. We'll have to see what happens to Rodrigo Garo, player from Argentina. He is their best attacking midfielder. However, he is involved in a legal case where he did run over and kill a person on a motorbike in Argentina. That's a sad thing to happen, and we hope that the victim's family is all right, and we hope that whatever the government in Argentina decides to do with Rodrigo Garo, we hope that it's the right decision. So coming up in São Paulo, you will see Palmeiras taking on Noroeste. We'll see Corinthians take on Velo Clube. We'll see São Paulo play Botafogo. That's out of Ribeirão Preto. And then Santos will play Ponte Preta out of Campinas. So the São Paulo championship, I think, is better than the Rio championship just because there's more teams in the first division and the second division. Just in the state of São Paulo, there is 5 teams in the top flight this season going into 2025. That's Corinthians, Palmeiras, São Paulo, Santos, and Mirassol. We will have to see how the state champions go. CRB here in Maceió, where I live, CRB took on Asa. That is the team out of Arapiraca, here close. They drew last night 0-0. That's my team, so if I ever talk too much about CRB, that is my bad. So this is going to be it for the first episode. Next week, I'll be looking to have a longer episode, have more stories, and to offer more to you guys. This is my first podcast. I've never done one before. I don't know how to use editing software. I don't know how to put music in the title. I don't know how to make a cool emblem or logo for the thing. I don't know anything about podcasting, and this is and it's something that for me I've been really nervous about. I've been really anxious about this, and I've been thinking that maybe I shouldn't do it, but I have to confide in myself, and I have to realize that I am capable of doing things, and I have to try things, and I have to try new things, and if I don't try them, I won't ever do them, and I won't know if I would be good at them. So I'd just like to thank everybody that listened to this first episode. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support, and have a good one.